Now, I'm really honored to introduce someone who's become a good friend and a co-chairman of my campaign, and my chief economic advisor, and former candidate. He announced this morning, former candidate for governor, Robert Graham.
Well, grateful to be here. This is an exciting time. We look at the state. Dean, a few times today, talked about the opportunity that we have as a state. And there's terrific opportunities as a state. When we look at growth and sustainable and viable economic growth within a state, we have to add to our economy. So when you hear Dean talking about bringing people to our state, think about it in the sense of capital, businesses, and people. They'll add, they'll contribute to our state. Right now, 5% of our nation's, of the world's consumption happens within the United States. 95% of the world's consumption happens outside of the United States. There are states within our country that have started to figure out, in order to build an economy, you have to add to the economy. Arizona is the opportunity state. We've talked about it, we believe it. Great climate, we have easy access, we have great people that are willing to work. You look at towns like Prescott and you want the growth to happen, because what happens is Dean also talked about the whole fact that this is not a partisan issue. People want financial security. They want to be able to raise their families, they want to have opportunities, they want to be able to provide for themselves. And when you look at what's happening with our economy right now, you see incredible discipline forming around the people. What's happening in people's lives today? They're cutting off cable. They're down to one car. They may be using one cell phone or have a very simple means of transportation, as easy as riding a bike to work. A good friend of mine that owned a mortgage business is now riding a bike to work because he's trying to maintain his lifestyle and keep a roof over his head. So you see this kind of discipline happening with the citizens. Why is this not happening within the government? You look at this, deficit spending should not be allowed. Spending within our means are essential. But then when you look at for real economic growth, we have to add to this economy. Arizona is an attractive state. One of the jobs, I think, of the governor is a voice for the state. So they have to go out and communicate to the rest of the world, our country. They have to communicate to investors, capital, that Arizona is the opportunity state, that you want to come to this state because this is where real growth comes from. When we attract people because they hear the story that Arizona is more than the Sunshine State, more than just a great vacation to play golf, that you can actually come here with your creativity, with your innovation, and we will help you foster economic growth. Arizona, again, you'll hear me say it over and over again, is the opportunity state to have fantastic outcomes. When you think about the taxation and hiking taxes and talk about hurting Arizona, again, it's a shell game. We're moving one penny out of one person's pocket and we're putting it in another pocket. Every time that happens, we have dilution. We don't have any growth. So again, for real economic growth, we have to add. Dean has an intimacy with the budget no other candidate has. He knows it. He's been writing the checks. He sees intimately where the opportunities are to improve our current standing as a state. So again, when you're 50th, as far as job creation, there's a lot of opportunity for growth, right? If we're the worst, we can become the best. And so again, Arizona has the opportunity to be the shining light in growth. We have easy access. Tucson used to be called the gateway to Asia. Let's return to these values. Let's communicate to the rest of the country that Arizona's here. We have Dean Martin, who I consider the next governor of Arizona, that will bring us
Well, I share as a lawman and with Frank here, who spent much of his career fighting corruption, we have a similar path. Down in Pinal County, which happens to be the fastest growing county in Arizona, the third largest, we've had our history with corruption. In fact, our former county manager sits in prison right now, the largest theft and corruption case in the history of Arizona, stole over $700,000. In my first year of this term, we have actually arrested people within the government who have compromised the trust that we hold with the public, stole credit card information, checks, all of these things that would have never become known if we didn't talk about it publicly. What we did, not only we arrested these people, we pulled the curtain and showed what's going on behind the scenes, and to be transparent. And that's what's so attractive about Dean Martin, and having him as a governor, somebody who's in fact been awarded 3 times, not once, 3 times, the hero of the taxpayer, and somebody who stands up for transparency and sharing information with the public, even if it's bad. That's what we need. Because if you shine the light of day onto what's going on down at our state capitol, it's atrocious. And they're not going to be able to survive it. And that's why we need leadership. We need somebody who's not only transparent, who's going to hold our government accountable to the people who pay the bills in this state, and is actually going to take action. Not wait a year, not wait 2 or 3 years after we know the bad news doesn't get better. Takes action immediately. And as Robert Graham mentioned, when you have that financial expertise and that understanding of the budget, not lobbyists, not all these staff members, but the governor himself, as the top leader of our state, that can say and see through all of this and say, this is what we're doing, this is the course ahead, and we have that. We have that in Dean Martin. He's the leader that Arizona needs. Thank you for coming. Right, if anyone has, do you want to take a couple questions here?
Yeah, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Martin.
Yes.
How can you continue to work with Governor Jan Brewer when you want her job?
Well, my first and last briefing was when she was Secretary of State, before she became governor, when we had described how bad things were and recommended that they make this change to Prop 204 that she's now finally bringing forward. So we will continue to work. I mean, I run the bank for the state. My role is independent of all other branches of government, of all other elected officials. That's on purpose. You don't want the person who's writing the checks to be the same person who has keys to the vault. That independent role doesn't change. And in my role, I've been an advisor that they didn't listen to until it was too late. And so I'm running for this position because I'm tired of telling everybody we've got a problem coming, I want to do something about it. At this point now, our relationship with the governor herself, is one thing, but the staff, we still continue and will continue to communicate. Whether they listen or not, whether they take the advice, that's not up to me, but we'll continue to put everything on the web and make it transparent. So that not just ourselves, and not just the governor's office, but the public and the legislature can see what's going on. So we're going to be continuing to communicate because that's our role, is to be a check and a balance, and that role really doesn't change because I don't work for the governor. I would have been fired a long time ago.
Will your battle for the nomination fracture the Republican Party?
The party is already fractured. You already had a number of candidates in this race before I even started looking at this. I've never had the support in any of my races of the insiders. I've never been an establishment candidate, and frankly, although I am a Republican, I am a conservative, I'm less interested in the party and more interested in Arizona. Elections are what they are. They're not fun, but they are necessary. The public needs to have a choice when running for office in who they want to lead, and we're going to provide that. I hope that this election will be about issues, but who knows